Communication is the way we talk and listen to each other. It includes the words we choose, our tone when we say them, and our body language. Everyone has their own communication style, a way in which they tend to take in the world around them and share it with others. And of course, how you communicate, the medium you choose, is a huge part of the message you send. People who are good communicators create a safe and welcoming environment, one where they build trust with each other. They do this by asking great questions, making sure that their voice, tone, and body language are all lined up, sending the same message. They make deliberate choices about how they send their message, whether it's face-to-face, on the phone, written in email, or texted. All this sets the tone for really effective collaboration on the job. Here's how style and communication affect people around you. In other words, don't be this guy.
Ian, are you busy?
Nah, man, I'm just sending out some emails. What's up?
I've gained an enemy at work and I'm not sure how it happened.
An enemy?
Pretty sure.
But how can anyone not like you, Chris?
That's the big question.
What happened?
Marty from the research department asked me to review a report for him, which I did, and I told him it was great.
Okay.
After I told him about all of its flaws. Yeah, and there were a ton of them, so I sent them to him in an email, bullet point form, and I think he got offended.
Yeah, you think?
Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, you might have had a point with the bullet points, but you came off harsh and insensitive.
Isn't honesty always the best policy?
You want to upset people?
Chris, there are ways to communicate, even if it's criticism. It makes people feel like you've created a safe environment.
Yeah, Marty's not gonna come back to you if you slammed him.
Bingo!
Or show that you don't care like Donna here.
What? I'm listening.
Yeah, you're in a classic slouch, texty mode, Your Majesty.
What? No, I'm not. Listen, Chris, in my experience, you should go to him and apologize first for coming off overly harsh. Then next time you can say, look, this is what I liked about this, but this is what I think you can do better. It's been hard for me to learn, but I think it's really polished my communication skills. See?
Yeah.
See, we just used good communication with Donna here. And it worked.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Thanks. I think.
In case you haven't noticed, a big part of this course series has to do with self-awareness of our own styles and preferences. It makes it easier to apply new skills and knowledge when we know where we're coming from. So, let's see what kind of communicator you are. Click on the statements that describe you the most. When you're finished, click the next button to get your results. Communication is also a two-way street. Most of the time, we only think of communication as the way in which we talk to others. But listening is just as important to great communication. Think of two people talking. One is the giver, and the other is the receiver. Most of the time in conversation, each person will play the role of giver and receiver as messages are passed back and forth. We'll spend time looking at both sides in this module. Let's think about great communication in 5 steps you can follow. In reality, you're often doing these things simultaneously, but it helps to break things down a bit to learn more about them. Have you heard of the phrase, seek first to understand, then to be understood? You can think about it this way. Consider the person in your life closest to you, maybe a best friend, spouse, partner, parent, or sibling. When you approach that person in conversation, you think the best of them, right? Even when they say something that might hurt or upset you. Making that person the priority of the conversation instead of yourself and your own needs will help you better understand their perspective, so you can better explain yours. In seeking to understand, you have to be a good listener. Set aside your opinions and prejudices and be present to what the other person is saying. Set aside all other activities or distractions and really give the other person your full attention. A great way to let the other person know you're thinking of them is to recognize and then acknowledge their emotions. You can do this by saying things like, "I can see this excites you," or "You seem upset." And then give the other person plenty of time to collect their thoughts and be comfortable with them pausing. A little silence while you each think is okay. You can repeat your understanding of their needs. Great communicators do this by saying things like, "Okay, so what I hear you saying is this." If you're in a work situation, you may even want to consider taking notes. This is a great way of quietly communicating that you're listening very carefully, and it helps you remember what was said and follow through later on. Being a good listener is usually called being an active listener. Active listeners listen with their entire being. They repeat information they've heard, ask questions to confirm their understanding, and they say and do things that show the other person that they are being heard. As you've probably experienced, there are other types of listeners. Passive listeners may actually be listening, but their body posture and eye contact don't look like it at all. The speaker can't tell if the receiver is listening, and typically, the speaker just assumes they are not. Competitive listeners appear to be listening, but they're actually only waiting for a break in the conversation so they can tell you why you're completely wrong and why they're right. Sometimes they're combative and want to argue with you. They're formulating answers in their own minds rather than listening to you. Consider what it feels like when others listen to you in these different ways. And then, in conversation with others, try your best to be aware of how you are listening. Remember your communication style from the assessment at the beginning of this course? There are 3 different styles altogether: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Click on each person on this screen to hear how they describe a situation. The words they use give you hints about how they perceive the world and how you might succeed in communicating with them. See if you can pick out who's who, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, as they talk. Click Next when you're ready to move on.
Hey, I need your help. You wouldn't believe what I just came from. I'm really feeling torn about this. I went out onto the floor and the mess just hit me flat on like a whap upside the face. Each way I turn, there's another mess coming at me. I move left, a mess. I move right, a mess. I could hardly get out of there alive. We're going to get beaten up over all these safety issues. Can you help me?
Hey, I need your help. You wouldn't believe what I just came from. In fact, let me paint you a picture. I went out onto the floor and it looked like a tornado had just come through. Things strewn all over, left over there, front over here, back, right. I am seeing massive safety issues popping up all over. Can you help me?
Hey, I need your help. You wouldn't believe what I just came from. Listen to this. I went out onto the floor and it was like a screaming bunch of preschoolers had just come through. You walk in the door and bam, there's a mess. And you go 2 steps forward and pow, there's another one. And you make a right and what do you see there? Bang, the next mess. I can just hear the safety guy going ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching each time he ticks another thing off his list. Can you help me?
3 things come together when you're communicating to send your whole message: the words you use, your body language, and your voice or tone. Your words include things like your favorite phrases, jargon, grammar, and things like that. If you choose offensive or negative words, that sends a particular message, doesn't it? Your choice of words really makes the difference. Your tone is how you say your words. Are you shouting, asking, or telling? Are you talking fast or slowly? Do you sound positive or negative? All of these affect how the words you're saying are interpreted. For example, here's the same sentence said 3 completely different ways. As you listen, think about how what you understand from the message is completely different based on how it's said. Guess what? I just saw the company CEO pull up to the front door with a bunch of red balloons and a man dressed up in a gorilla suit. Guess what? I just saw the company CEO pull up to the front door with a bunch of red balloons and a man dressed up in a gorilla suit. Well, guess what? I just saw the company CEO pull up to the front door with a bunch of red balloons and a man dressed up in a gorilla suit. Your body language is your hand gestures, how you hold your arms, open or closed, your facial expressions, eye contact, physical contact, and more. To be the most effective in your communication, be sure your words, tone, and body language all line up and send the right message. The last bit to consider is how to send your message. A communication medium is the way in which you send it. It can be in a face-to-face conversation, on the phone, over email, in a text, as a Facebook post, a Skype call, or a note you leave on the wall. There are lots of ways to send messages. About 25 seconds ago, we talked about words, tone, and body language. But not all media carry all those signals. And when you're choosing a communication medium, there are a few other things to consider. Is this a formal message or an informal one? Who are you communicating to? How do they like to communicate? How fast does the message have to get there? How fast do you need a response? Are you sending a lot of information or just a little? How important is it that the receiver understand your emotional state? Do you need an opportunity to collect your thoughts before you reply? Considering all these elements, electronic communication like texting and email may not always be the best option for understanding. Now, back to our friends from the video, because each one has their own disc style. Click on each character to hear how they approach communication. Click next when you're ready to move on.
I am always animated in communication, and I am told I am not very good at listening too much. I can get easily distracted, which means that sometimes I might ask the same question more than once. Oops. I am also told I can communicate too fast and get too close or too emotional sometimes. I just like people.
When I communicate with others, I try to be direct and say what I think. People tell me I have a habit of interrupting, and that sometimes I can be blunt. If people think I'm being impolite, it's not intentional. I tend to be a fast communicator, and I'm not always patient with those who can't keep up.
I prefer to communicate in writing whenever I can because I don't like to talk much. Plus, writing helps me be sure I get the details, facts, and figures right. I guess I could be more expressive and show more emotion in my communication. I've been told my style can be cold, impolite, or distant, but I don't intend to be.
When it comes to communication, I do better at listening and asking good questions than with talking. This can make me seem slow when communicating, and I've been told I can get emotional and opinionated. I need to learn to talk more when I communicate.
Choosing the right medium for the message is a challenge for a lot of people. Communication is a critical part of our everyday lives on the job, and it's important to get it right. That means seeking first to understand and being a good listener. When you know your communication style and the styles of the people around you, you can create messages that make sense to them. Sending your message involves aligning your words, tone, and body language, and choosing the right medium for the message. Your assignment? Spend some time thinking through the right medium for the message. You can download the guide for this topic and link to some useful material from this screen. Thanks for stopping by and for making a commitment to improve your work life by learning more about your communication skills. When you're done getting the resources you need, just click in the upper right to close this course window.